New York City police have just announced the capture of the man whom they believe to be the Son of Sam, 44 caliber killer.
It was New York City, 1977, a city under siege. A deranged serial killer was on the loose. He used a 44 caliber bulldog revolver, a devastating weapon of destruction. He referred to himself as the Duke of Death and Wicked King Wicker. To New Yorkers and the rest of the nation, he was simply known as the Son of Sam. With bizarre, threatening letters, he taunted the city's officials. His announced goal was to bring New York City to its knees, and for one full year, he succeeded. During that frightening period, life changed drastically. Terrified New Yorkers switched their daily routines, taking alternative routes to work and home. At night, the usually packed discos and restaurants were empty. The Lover's Lanes, one of the Son of Sam's favorite target areas, were deserted. Tough, brash New Yorkers, used to almost every kind of stress, locked themselves in their apartments and homes, fearing that they may become the Son of Sam's next victim. Finally, on August 10th, 1977, after the largest manhunt in New York City's history, the year of mayhem and terror ended. The final bloody carnage. Over 2,000 fires set. 6 innocent young people dead. Many others seriously wounded. With his capture, the mysterious identity of the Son of Sam was made known to the nation. His name, David Berkowitz. Time magazine said that few killers have seemed as psychotic as David Berkowitz. One key investigator on the case called him loony, wacko, gone. But the courts ruled that he was sane. And after pleading guilty, without a trial, David Berkowitz was condemned to 6 consecutive life sentences with no chance of parole. To society, the name of David Berkowitz became a symbol of depravity and evil, a useless and wasted life that was beyond any hope. But that's not the way the tale of David Berkowitz ends. There's another side to that story, one that we will now examine.
I curse the day that I was born because I lived without hope for so many years. Growing up in the Bronx, had all kinds of emotional and childhood problems, and I was wild, and I would have these seizures that would come upon me, where I'd start rampaging through the house and throwing things down and rolling on the floor. Sometimes my dad had to just grab hold of me and pin me down to the floor till these seizures stopped. I just loved the darkness. There was something in me that just craved the darkness. I would lock myself in the closet for sometimes hours at a time, and my mom didn't even know I was in the house. At other times, I would just hide under my bed and stay that way for several hours. There were times at night when I just felt a craving or an urge to just go outside. Sometimes I would sneak down my fire escape and just wander the alleyways, wander the streets, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then sneak back the same way. Sometimes my parents didn't even know that I was gone. I had no joy in my heart. I had no happiness. I felt mentally confused. I was struggling in school. I was cutting out of school. I just couldn't be controlled. I was lonely. I had no real companionship. And I was invited to a party one day. I went to the party. This was in the Bronx. A couple of guys said, hey, listen, you're looking for a girl or something, you're looking for a good time, we got some friends that meet in a park nearby. So I went over to the park, and we went deep into the woods. This was Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx, and they had like a small fire going, and a lot of people were drinking, they were singing, some people were chanting, and I says, well, what is this, And I began to meet some of the people, and they says, oh, well, we're pagans. We're witches, and we come out here to have a good time. but they were the ones that introduced me to Satanism. We had circles, we had the pentagrams that they made right there in the woods, in the high weeds, in the swampy area. And we would just call upon the different powers. They said, call upon these angels. Later on, I found out that these were really demons that we were calling upon. But I would do these rituals and meditate, and you could feel this surge of energy come upon you. Things began to change within me. When I grew up, you know, I had no real fear of God, no real respect for God. I didn't know anything about him. And I just did whatever I felt like doing, whatever felt good. But I had no idea that there would really be a consequence for those actions. I mean, I know that if you did something wrong and you got caught, you're going to be punished. But, you know, when you do something, you think, yeah, I'm going to get away with this. Nobody's going to catch me. I hurt innocent people, and I took innocent lives. And that really gets to me, you know. I got, like, great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart over the lives that were destroyed through my own foolishness. And I have no excuse to make, you know. I have nobody I can put the blame on but myself. I don't think people can understand the depth of Satan's wickedness towards the human race, that how much he hates the human race and God's creation, and how he's so set on destroying people. And the younger he can get people, the more advantageous to him. I started out just dabbling in things, just toying with things, and I got burnt real bad. I know that the devil has a plan and a purpose for every person's life, and that is to destroy that person, to take that person to hell, to keep that person blinded to the dangers of the things that they're doing, and eventually to steal their soul. The devil blinds us to the consequences of sin, and as we move along, it gets harder and harder to come to God as time goes on. If you think that you say to yourself, well, I'll just wait for another day, or, hey, man, I want to have my fun first, or I want to party down and this or that, the devil has a trick for you.
The Bible says that Jesus Christ came to destroy the works of the devil. Even though the devil's power is great, the love and power of Jesus Christ are far greater. And it was after 10 long years in a lonely prison cell that David Berkowitz learned of that amazing power.
I was walking the prison yard, one cold winter night by myself, just walking in circles, and at that night, another inmate walked up to me and says, David, Jesus Christ loves you very much. I says, what? He said, Jesus Christ loves you very much. He's told me to tell you that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. I says, listen, God ain't interested in me. You know, I appreciate it, but God is not for me. I don't believe God loved me. I'm not a good person. I've never done anything good. Why would God love me? He says, well, you don't understand. He says, God loves you. And he says, if you'd let me, I'd like to be your friend. But we became friends, and after about several weeks, he gave me a pocket Bible like this, one of these Gideon's pocket Bibles, and he said, read the Psalms. So I started to read the Psalms, and I was shocked to find some of the most beautiful words that I've ever read. And all these things began to touch my heart. Like, for example, in Psalm 18, I never heard these words before. It says, I will love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God in whom I will trust. He's my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. And I was reading this and thinking, my enemies? I says, yeah, I got a lot of enemies because in prison, I was threatened a number of times. You know, I had to stand my ground. And one time, as you can see, a guy tried to cut my throat. When I was in Attica Correctional Facility in 1979, a guy had a razor blade and he snuck me. All these years, the devil had my mind. I mean, I gave up on life. I gave up on everything. I said, you know, my attitude was, leave me alone, man. I'm here in prison to die, and that's it. Well, I began to read these things for the first time in my life. And it says here in Psalm 18, verse 6, for example, in my distress, I called on the Lord, And I cried out to my God, and he heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. And I says, wow, you know, God hears. One night, I was in my cell, and it was near midnight, and I was reading the Bible. I don't even remember what passage it was, what psalm, but suddenly I just felt this overwhelming urge to just open up. I just felt something come upon me where I says, God, you know, I can't take this anymore. God, if you're real, if you're around, if you're out there, if you want anything to do with me, I don't know. But I'm just sick of the way I live. I'm sick of the way I live my life. I'm sick of all the torment that I went through. I'm sick of all the hatred. I'm sick of having to live with knowing that I hurt innocent people, knowing that I destroyed lives. I'm sick of the devil. I'm sick of being lied to. I don't give a darn anymore. If you're interested in me, if you could hear me, you know, let me just start pouring my heart out to you. In the quietness, I just started crying and crying, and all this stuff was just coming at me. I said, God, I'm so sorry for living like an animal. I'm so sorry for all these things, Lord God. I don't even understand what happened. Lord, it seems like I never had a moment peace, God. I never had a moment of peace or happiness in my life, not real happiness. And I just began to cry. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but when I got up off my knees, I felt that the tremendous load had been lifted from my shoulders. I don't know, something happened, something changed. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day for you to invite Jesus Christ into your life and say, Lord, forgive me and make me a new person.
On the loose. He used a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver, a devastating weapon of destruction. He referred to himself as the Duke of Death and Wicked King Wicker. To New Yorkers and the rest of the nation, he was simply known as the Son of Sam. With bizarre, threatening letters, he switched their daily routines, taking alternative routes to work and home. At night, the usually packed discos and restaurants were empty. The Lovers' Lanes, one of the Son of Sam's favorite target areas, were deserted. Tough, brash New Yorkers, used to almost every kind of stress, locked themselves in their apartments and homes, fearing that they may become the Son of Sam's next victim. Finally, on August 10th, 1977, after the largest manhunt in New York City's history, taunted the city's officials. His announced goal was to bring New York City to its knees, and for one full year, he succeeded. During that frightening period, life changed drastically. Terrified New Yorkers
New York City police have just announced the capture of the man whom they believe to be the Son of Sam, .44 caliber killer.
It was New York City, 1977, a city under siege. A deranged serial killer was